President Bola Tinubu says he takes full responsibility for the economy of the country and is assuring Nigerians that he is working to lead Nigeria towards economic and social prosperity. Addressing Afenifere leaders at the residence of Pa Ruben Fashoranti in Akure, Ondo State, the president emphasized his commitment to ensuring Nigeria is reformed for greater efficiency. He said Nigeria will survive the current economic challenges and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. On reforming Nigeria, President Tinubu said his task will be to ensure fiscal and true federalism. President Bola Tinubu also paid a condolence visit to the late governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu's family. Tinubu visited Akeredolu's family in Owo, Ondo State, days after the former governor was buried. He said the void left by the departed governor would be challenging to fill, adding that his legacies would endure forever.
We lost an illustrious sons. Yes, say a man passed. Akeredolu is my very, very close ally. I feel the life of my friend, my partner, my political associate. Thank you for giving him the Ayedatiwa. Thank you, Deputy. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
The whole of last week, we were engulfed with the celebration of the life and times of one of the illustrious sons of our, one of our great sons, one of our great leaders in Ondo State, and also a Nigerian par excellence, a patriot, who is also one of your own, one of those that you have also groomed at one time or the other. Not only that, you have decided to come personally to demonstrate that love once again, that interest once again, to be with us. Thank you, Mr. President. You are most welcome, sir. Thank you.
The fact remains that we are Nigerians. We know our trajectory, where we are coming from. No matter what happens today, you are doing the right thing. Your steps is on the right track. I will continue to support you, Mr. President. Be rest assured that your government will succeed because you are determined. We see the determination in you. With good people around you, you will succeed in this government. And count on us, all the traditional rulers here, and the people of Ondo State.
All right, Rufai, the president has said he takes full responsibility. However, we're on the road to recovery, and also paid a condolence visit to a man he's described as his ally, former governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, SAN. We'll take on the stories.
So, as regards the president taking full responsibility, there's no big deal about that. He's the leader. The buck stops with him. You know, some people have tried to spin the narrative that the president take responsibility should be celebrated. And I'm looking at how low is the standard of public discourse and leadership in this country. That a leader that made decisions, that the decisions came back to hurt people, have taken responsibility for his actions. And he's trying to remedy it. But leaders too should also listen to public affairs analysts. Because these two decisions, when he was taking them, we told him on this table. We told him about floating the naira. Today he has gone back to selling, what's it called, to BDCs. The CBN has gone back to selling dollars at the rate of 1,301 to BDCs. Is that not fixing? Didn't we argue here, fix before you get your fundamentals right before you float? Wasn't that my argument here? Have they not gone back to my argument 8 months after? Have we not reverted to paying to subsidies? I'm not saying a leader should not take bold decisions, but there's something called calculated risks. Why do you think banks have risk departments? To be able to calculate the amount of risk, there's something called risk management. Risk management was not taken into cognizance when those decisions were made. Probably the government too, in its advisory, should also have risk managers. But I don't want another advisory so that we'll not bloat the already increased number of advisors we have already. Because he himself wrote an article in 2012 and he talked about these things that will happen. 2012 was even a better time to have pulled out the subsidy because we had the fundamentals a whole lot better then. But now, after the painful hardship, now we're trying to dial back on all of that. So yeah, he must take responsibility for his action and he must work at fixing it. He is the leader. What we can do here is to support him with our kudos and criticisms. Kudos when he does right, criticisms when he does otherwise. But we have to get the fundamentals of this economic right. Because the question is, after the crackdown of Binance, is that going to bring Forex to our economy? We need to increase productivity to be able to get the Forex. We are still solely dependent on oil receipts and other things, but we need to ramp it up. If we have companies, and that's why government should support the young people, who have companies like Apple and TikTok in Nigeria that are bringing in huge dollar receipts, do you think we will not feel the impacts? Is it not one company, Novavax, that makes the drug Ozempic in Denmark, that brought so much foreign dollars to Danish economy that Denmark used the money to go to stabilize the forex, and their currency was even gaining over the dollar from just one company, the company that makes Ozempic. So what we need to do is we need to improve on our companies here, make the environment conducive. Also, I'm happy about the team is set up that the Manufacturing Association is there. At a point in this country, manufacturing is close to 20% of our GDP, but today manufacturing is falling. We're not adding value to agricultural produce. We should look at tech. A lot of Nigerian young men are doing great things all over the world. So let's support them so that we'll be a productive area. So he's taking responsibility. And also he went ahead to, condole with the Akeredolu family in Owo. And you can see what he said there. Him and Akeredolu, they were allies, but the president also respected the strong personality of Akeredolu. Akeredolu was a no-nonsense man. He was a man that was always constantly ready to go against the normal convention because of his convictions. And I respect man like that. Akeredolu was not perfect, but he was a man of his convictions. And that's why when the president said they were allies, yes, they were allies, because he also understood that Akeredolu understood his own convictions. And he was not a man that was rudderless. Against what the federal government was saying, then Editor General, he ensured that Amotekun was birthed. Even when the conversation started for where power should tilt towards, Akeredolu also led the charge as regards that. He was a man with a lot of foresight, and it's a good thing the president went there, to visit Akeredolu, and it's very sad, the pain that has befallen the Akeredolu family, because just a couple of, months or about a year ago or thereabout, if my memory serves, he just lost his mother. They just went to bury, and now he is passed. Also, the Olowo forward, they exchanged pleasantries and they talked about national development and all of that. And he also, by extension, went to see Parfashoroti, where he made that, statement. So it's a good outing for the president. And the president is going to be here today in Lagos. President Tinubu, welcome to your home, Lagos. And he's here already. I've been seeing all the police paraphernalia, and he's going to be launching a landmark parade. And I want to give kudos to Lagos State. Special kudos. Lagos State leads the way. 2 lines up and running train in the country. Other cities should come and learn from Lagos. Congrats, Governor Sanwo-Olu. Good one. When you do good, I'll say it. You did good.
All right. Talking about, since you ended on the Governor Sanwo-Olu kudos, let me also talk about, in relation to the visit of the president to the widow of Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, Mrs. Betty Akeredolu, who commended Lagos State in particular. She commended the Southwest governors for their support during the going home ceremony of her husband, but particularly singled out Lagos State and the governor for single-handedly repatriating his body home, bringing him home. And she really said, used the opportunity to commend him before the president and say thank you. And so in the spirit of saying that when things are done well, we must give kudos to whom it is due. Now, talking about that visit, it spoke a number of things. First of all, the president saying, without mincing words, that Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, the late Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, was a strong ally and an illustrious son of Ondo State. One of the things that you cannot criticize the president for is what has been said or called his loyalty, especially when it has to do with his people. And in fact, it's been the reason why some people have said perhaps some of his appointments are nepotistic in nature, but he shows a strong loyalty, not just in life, but also in death. He had mentioned, following his visits, Mrs. Betsy Akeredolu had explained the reason why the president was unable to come physically to the burial, saying that it goes against the Yoruba culture, whereby the president, being older and seeing Governor Akeredolu as his younger brother, couldn't attend his funeral. However, it didn't stop him from coming in his personal capacity to visit the family, and in attendance were the widow, his children, as Governor Akeredolu's children, and extended members of the family. Now, he used that opportunity to also visit the Olowo of Owo. And during his campaign season, now talking about loyalty, he had gone to the Olowo of Owo to seek his support. And he was commended for that move, saying that he promised he was going to come back in the event that he won, and he came back afterwards. So these are some of the traits I must point out in terms of this visit. Now, in terms of the statements that were made, he used the opportunity to address some of the Afenifere leaders. Present there, we saw Chief Bisi Akonde. We also had Chief Olufalaye as well, and he spoke on behalf of Pa Ayo Fashoranti, Ruben Fashoranti. And he used the opportunity to talk about the fact that he was taking full responsibility. Yes, the buck stops with him. However, we have seen leaders who pass the buck. Despite the obvious fact that the buck stops with them, they pass the buck and continue to blame whether previous administration or other things aside from themselves or the way they have taken or the decisions they have taken as what's responsible for the current situation of things. So that's the first step. An ownership and an acknowledgement of the challenges that we face and an ownership of that problem is a good signal. Now, beyond that, he then says that we're on the road to recovery. Now, that's where some people might think, okay, it doesn't look like it. He says there are painful situations. He's talked about childbirth, the pains of birth a number of times. However, we've also said that in the process of childbirth, you do not want to kill the people in such a way that they do not even have the opportunity to enjoy the benefits of this recovery that you're talking about. And that's why some of his decisions have been faulted. Now, that's already in the past. What we're now looking forward to is how do we rectify these challenges? And a number of things have come up and some quick wins. He said at the very beginning when he announced the removal of fuel subsidy that there'll be cushions, there'll be palliatives, even though people now hate that word palliatives, but there'll be safety nets so that people, especially the most vulnerable, will not feel the biting effect of these safety net. Unfortunately, this administration has not made good on that promise. And so beyond all the things that have been spoken about, the people are hungry. In fact, the term Ebin Power, that is, we are hungry, has been trending. A number of people are calling out to him that you need to do something in the immediate. A number of promises or a number of announcements as well from this administration seem to be in local parlance or in street parlance audio. When you talk about the release of tons from the Federal Reserve, where are those grains? Where are they today? If you talk about, already some cash transfers have been made to vulnerable households, who are the beneficiaries of these cash transfers? When you talk about policy direction, 1 minute you're saying, okay, open land borders so that there's more food. Where are these things? So these are the critical conversations. It's not enough. He's no longer in campaign season. He's now in governance season. He's now in government. We cannot just continue to hear promises and emissaries. We want to see action. Like we would say, show working. That's what the people want to hear. But, good visit there. It was good to see some of the leaders, the Afenifere leaders right there, and also to honor the legacy and the lifetime of Governor Rotimi Akeredolu. Move on to our next story. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, may slam huge fines running into billions of dollars on one of the world's biggest exchanges, Binance, and other cryptocurrency firms operating in the country. SEC, alongside other security operatives, is currently probing allegations that the crypto companies had engaged in currency manipulations activities against the Naira without underlying transactions, a development which had contributed to the current FX liquidity crisis in the country. Binance had previously been sanctioned by the U.S. government for repeatedly engaging in currency manipulations. Following the crackdown by the federal government, the company yesterday reportedly suspended its operations and barred users from buying the USDT and USDC stablecoins with Naira following fresh allegations or investigations by the Central Bank of Nigeria in collaboration with security agencies. Now, other news this morning at this time include that the New York appeals judge denies Donald Trump's request to pay just $100 million of the $454 million judgment for his New York fraud trial. Also, Senator Mitch McConnell, the longtime top Senate Republican, will step down as the Senate Republican leader in November. Alexei Navalny's widow, Yulia Navalnaya, fears that Russian President Vladimir Putin will order arrests at her husband's funeral on Monday. In other news, in Ghana, Ghana's parliament has voted to pass a bill to restrict LGBTQ rights in the West African country. All right, Rufai, you already said speaking, or you touched on the Binance story, and there's so many angles, so many takes on this. But what's your take on the Binance story?
I think we should be very careful. We know how to blame other people for our currency woes. Was it Binance that was there when we floated the currency many years ago and it fell to about 500 naira to the dollar? That was in 2016. Was Binance to be blamed? Because now they were trying to blame Binance. It just reminds me of that Aboki FX episode again. We're blaming the speculators for everything. But the speculators cannot speculate if they don't see weakness. It's just like a shark. A shark cannot attack if it doesn't smell blood. The reason why speculators are attacking is because, to a large extent, they see weakness. And what are the weaknesses? The fundamentals were wrong in the first place. There was no liquidity in the market. And we're not able to get leadership right as regards how to fix the problem. We said we had a managed float, but we're not having the fundamentals to be able to defend and fight back. So we allowed the currency slump for a while. The same BDCs we blamed for the problem last week that we cracked down on, and weeks before, are the same BDCs we are selling $2 to at 1,301 today. So we cracked down on the BDCs. Now, Binance executives came to talk. We detained them and arrested them. Yeah, you're asking them for KYC. You forget that crypto means encrypted. You can't stop the move of technology. What I would have thought is also see how we can play in the play. We have an e-naira. How can we bolster that? How can we look to the future? Because this is still the future of money. If you go through the iteration of money from the Ming Dynasty, where we started having paper notes in China over hundreds of years ago, to what we have today, to plastic money, to electronic money, to when we had the first ATMs in the 60s and the 70s, to all the things we have today as regards money and transaction. So you will know that this is the future of money and you need to key into the future. So there's no how you try to change it one way or the other, that it will work. So I think we should be guided. What we should do is have the fundamentals by increasing productivity to make our currency fit for purpose and make it stronger than a productive economy. We know what our problems are. Let's stop deceiving ourselves. A lot of money is being wasted in this country on crude oil theft and the likes. Too much money unrecovered on the table.
All right, well, Rufai, a number of things you've mentioned, but some of the things, because we have had reports that the CEOs, the two CEOs of Binance were in Nigeria, and unfortunately they've been detained. And for me, I'd like to center on that in terms of, I understand that an investigation is ongoing, and perhaps they've been brought in for questioning. The full details not yet released. But one of the things I would mention is that in terms of our drive to attract foreign investors, our drive to demonstrate that Nigeria is a good market to invest in, when there arrests or detentions like this, especially for expatriates, then it does bring a cause for concern. You talked about the fact that this might not be the main cause. A number of things have been discussed, and that's why I mentioned earlier on about the issue of, number one, recognition of what the challenges are, and number two, an ownership of that responsibility, and not passing on the buck or passing on the responsibility to very minor in some cases. But what had made headlines earlier this week was the fact that through Binance, $26 million had come through the system, and this raised a lot of alarm. Raised alarm and a number of conversations across different channels. However, what has been said there would be a coalition of security agencies, including the DSS, to investigate further and to understand if indeed, or to reveal perhaps the manipulation of what had been said of the foreign exchange here in Nigeria and how Binance plays that role. I would suggest that because of the nature of the individuals and the organization involved, Binance has about 170 million users across the world. It is important that this is done obeying the rule of law, transparently, and with that, and following due process. I think this is very, very critical. It sends a signal to the international world, and it's important at this point where we're trying to attract. I mentioned even investment in technology, investment in the tech space. It's important that this is handled properly. I'll take a recap of the stories I'd mentioned earlier on, just to look at some headlines around the world. New York appeals judge denies Donald Trump's request to pay just $100 million of the $454 million judgment for his New York fraud trial. Also, Senator Mitch McConnell, the longtime top Senate Republican, will step down as the Senate Republican leader in November. Alexei Navalny's widow, Yulia Navalnaya, fears that Russian President Vladimir Putin will order arrests at her husband's funeral on Friday. And here on the African continent, Ghana's parliament has voted to pass a bill to restrict LGBTQ rights in the West African country.